grandparents, extended family, and friends of the class of 2003, welcome to this service of worship on this very special day. Thank you especially for the time, the care, the resources, and the love that you have given to make this day possible. To the class of 2003, good morning for the last time as undergraduates at Juniata College. We are grateful for all your contributions to the life of this college. We celebrate your achievement, and we wish you well as you move on to represent your family and Juniata in all your future endeavors. To Juniata's faculty, staff, and trustees, welcome and thank you for the work and dedication that you have given to assist another generation of Juniata students. This is a day for celebration and a day for gratitude. Please join me as we begin this day in worship, invited and inspired by the Juniata College Choir.
Please stand and join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, this morning we gather to remember the stories of our faith, the ways in which you have remembered and led your people in the past. We gather to remember our common past, sending children off to college, rejoicing together about the passing of another school year that would lead to the day of graduation. We gather with the gratitude for friends, professors, and family who have helped shape who we are as we worship together one last time as a community. And we gather to receive courage and grace for our step into the future. May the wonder of who we have become, the relationships we have built, and the knowledge we have received blend together to prepare us to go forth from our college years with confidence and with the faith needed to face challenges yet unseen. Gather us in this morning, receiving who we have been and continuing to shape who we are becoming. Amen.
A reading from the Old Testament, Esther 4. Then Esther called to Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs who had been appointed to attend her, and ordered him to go to Mordecai to learn what was happening and why. Hathach went out to Mordecai in the open square of the city in front of the king's gate. And Mordecai told him all that had happened to him and the exact sum of money that Haman had promised to pay into the king's treasuries for the destruction of the Jews. Mordecai also gave him a copy of the written decree issued in Susa for their destruction, that he might show it to Esther, explain it to her, and charge her to go to the king to make supplication to him and entreat him for her people. Hathach went and told Esther what Mordecai had said. Then Esther spoke to Hathach and gave him a message from Mordecai, saying, "All the king's servant and the people of the king's provinces know that if any man or woman goes into the king inside the inner court without being called there, there is but one law: all alike are to be put to death. Only if the king holds out the golden scepter to someone may that person live. I myself have not been called to come into the king for 30 days. When they told Mordecai what Esther had said, Mordecai told them to reply to Esther, "Do not think that in the king's palace you will escape any more than all the other Jews. For if you keep silence at such a time as this, relief and deliverance will rise for the Jews from another quarter. But you and your father's family will perish. Who knows? Perhaps you have come to royal dignity for just such a time as this." Then Esther said in reply to Mordecai, "Go, gather all the Jews to be found in Susa, and hold a fast on my behalf, and neither eat nor drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my maids will also fast, as you do. After that I will go to the king, though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish." Mordecai then went away and did everything as Esther had ordered him.
Please join with me as we read the Litany of Call, which is found in your bulletin. Esther was called for a special purpose at a unique time in history. When she recognized her calling from God, she fasted to prepare herself to step in faith and follow where her Lord was leading. Abraham was called for a special purpose at a unique time in history as well. By an act of faith, Abraham said yes to God's call to travel to an unknown place that would become his home. When he left, he had no idea where he was going. Each of us is called for a special purpose at our unique time in history. Like Esther, recognizing God's call upon our lives, we come today, prepared to take the next step in our journeys, trusting that God will use us for such a time as this. We may hear your voice clearly, many voices calling to us in the time of transition. Like Abraham, those graduating today are taking a new step into uncharted territory. They enter this time without the certainty of where graduation may take them, what they will need to take them there, or where they will land.
Reading from the book of Colossians. So if you have been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on earth, for you have died, and your life is hidden with Christ in God. When Christ, who is your life, is revealed, then you also will be revealed with him in glory. Put to death, therefore, whatever in you is earthly: fornication, impurity, passion, evil desire, and greed, which is idolatry. On account of the wrath of God is coming on those who are disobedient. These are the ways that you also once followed when you were living that life. But now you must get rid of all such things: anger, wrath, malice, slander, and abusive language from your mouth. Do not lie to one another, seeing that you have stripped off the old self with its practices, and have clothed yourself in the new self, which is being renewed in the knowledge according to the image of its Creator. In that renewal, there is no longer Greek and Jew, circumcised and uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave and free, but Christ is all in all. As God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience. Bear with one another, and if anyone has a complaint against another, forgive each other, just as the Lord has also forgiven you. So you must also forgive. And above all, clothe yourselves with love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony. Word of the Lord.
I will come to you. us pray. Lord, steer the ship of our graduates' lives to your quiet harbor, where they can be safe from storms of sin and conflict. Show them the course they should take, renew in them the gift of discernment so that they can see the right direction in which they should go. And give them the strength and courage to choose the right course, even when the sea is rough and the waves are high, knowing that through enduring hardships and danger, in your name they shall find comfort and peace. Amen.
A reading from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 9, verses 30 through 37. They went on from there and passed through Galilee. He did not want anyone to know it, for he was teaching his disciples, saying to them, "The Son of Man is to be betrayed into human hands, and they will kill him, and 3 days after being killed, he will rise again." But they did not understand what he was saying, and were afraid to ask him. Then they came to Capernaum, and when he was in the house, he asked them, "What were you arguing about along the way?" But they were silent, for on the way they had argued with one another about who was the greatest. He sat down, called the 12, and said to them, "Whoever wants to be first must be last of all and servant of all." And then he took a little child and put it among them, and taking it in his arms, he said to them, "Whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me welcomes not me, but the one who sent me."
Good morning. I wasn't going to take much time to just share a few informal thoughts, but I can't help it as I sit up here. I start to reminisce. This is my senior year as well. 4 years in this place has deeply changed my life as I know it has yours. And I can't help but to think of all the different ways in which our lives have touched each other. And I think in just a number of ways that my life has been changed by those of you who are graduating today. Multiply that by the faculty and administration and trustees. Multiply that by your families who have sent you into these years and been by your side. And I think what a cloud of witnesses we have around us. What strength we have we can draw from each other. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be here today with you as you move into the graduation time. As I turn to the texts for this morning, we first come to one of those conversations that reminds me all too much of a conversation that I'm sure many of you have had in class with a lot of your professors. See, Jesus is teaching his disciples. He's talking about the things that he feels most passionate about. He's telling them about life and death and the things that matter to him. And they, all too often, are like what I know it feels like sitting in class after you've listened to a lecture that you aren't quite sure where it was going. And the professor says, "So are there questions?" And the dilemma begins. Do I speak up? Do I say, "Professor, I'm clueless what you just talked about for the last hour"? Do I admit it? Or do I just jot down some notes and maybe go back and talk to somebody else after class? Come over later during hours so I won't be embarrassed in public for admitting I don't know? All those kind of dilemmas go through your mind, I know, over and over again. And you find yourself in those situations that don't quite seem to add up as you thought they might. For the disciples were arguing. They were arguing over who would be greatest among them. And Jesus, like I'm sure professors sometimes find themselves inclined to say, turns to his disciples and basically says, "Have we been in the same room all semester? Have we been on different planets? I'm not quite sure what happened here, but somehow you seem to have missed the point." The idea of being the greatest that Jesus has been talking about, he says to his disciples, isn't something that you're probably going to want to fight over. This is not something that you're going to be clamoring to be able to be the one who grasps first. The greatest, the most successful, isn't the one who has the most in the end, isn't the one who has gathered the most power, the most things. It isn't the one who looks the best, or even the one who has the most followers, Jesus says. If you want to be great, he suggests, you must be willing to be a servant to all. Jesus had a way of turning things around like that, of taking them, as some of you have heard me say maybe too many times, taking them to a new level. I had a roommate in college who was a pretty good tennis player. He liked playing me in tennis because there was one thing he never had to be afraid of. You got it. Losing. He knew he could beat me, but that's because he was a pretty good tennis player. He played on the tennis team. But whenever he went out to play tennis with me, the biggest concern on his mind seemed to never be whether he would win or how to play against me that day. his biggest concern always was really how to look. And he always looked good. He dressed well for tennis. Even when he was playing against me, his roommate, he would dress up in a nice matching outfit, and he'd even put on that nice little vest that complements the outfit so well. And he was a good tennis player. The only problem that my roommate had was his temper. When he had a tough match against members of other teams from other colleges, he often had to take several rackets with him to the match. And even on a good day, only brought back one or two. See, my roommate was suspended or thrown off the tennis team probably more times than he aced me when playing each other because of his temper and throwing rackets and breaking them on the ground. The conclusion, looking good may make you play better tennis, but it doesn't necessarily stop you from being who you are underneath. It doesn't change who you are. It does bring to mind, though, for me, the quote by Mark Twain, who said, "Clothes make the man, or the woman. Naked people have little or no influence on society." Well, be that as it may, one thing is certain. While there is much agreement on the fact that life will often be difficult for all of us, there is much disagreement about what it means to be successful in life and how to be best prepared for the difficult times in that life. So when I think of people who have weathered the storms of life well, especially people of faith, I find myself frequently going back to the story of Esther you heard read this morning. Here was a woman who had it all. A simple Jewish girl who found herself in the admirable role of being Queen of Persia. Talk about success. But suddenly, in the midst of it all, a message comes to her from her uncle Mordecai that a plot has been uncovered for the destruction of the Jews, the queen's own family and people. What to do? The dilemma begins for her. Does she stay quiet and protect her identity and her own newfound success? Or does she go and risk trying to convince the king to change his plans, risking revealing herself, losing perhaps her newfound privileges, and maybe even her life? Let's not forget that the reason that she was queen to begin with was because the prior queen had displeased the king and was no longer with them. She had been banished from the kingdom. But Esther, we hear in the story, after much personal struggle and preparation through fasting and prayer, took the risk of stepping out in faith and dared to approach the king unannounced. She prepared herself, clothed herself, if you will, to risk all, to be faithful to her people and to her God. And fortunately, the king heard her, and we know that the plot was stopped. A whole people who otherwise were without a power of their own to stop such an attack were saved. I couldn't help but think of another illustration of what it means to me to be willing to step out in faith, to go where you maybe don't always want to go, to sacrifice the safety and security of your home, to be willing to risk because of something that you find yourself called to from beyond yourself. It comes from the writings of Tolkien, one who speaks to the deep inner experience of humanity. There's a recent movie that many of you have seen, Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Rings. And in it, Frodo Baggins finds himself caught up in a quest that is bigger than himself. He has no desire to be rich or famous, though he does dream of a life beyond the Shire. And he gets his chance when he is called upon to deliver a very powerful and dangerous ring to the elves in Rivendell. And in the brief portion of the movie that I'd like to show you, he is struggling. Struggling between that call that is very heavy on him and his desire to return to the comfort of a home. And once the decision is made, he has to clothe himself with two things that will hopefully make the quest successful. The first is a circle of companions, which becomes known as the Fellowship of the Ring. And secondly, he is given some equipment, the tools that will help protect him on his journey. I invite you for a moment to watch with me as this time of decision is upon Frodo.
I will take the ring to Mordor. No. I do not know the way.
I will help you bear this burden, Frodo Baggins, as long as it is yours to bear.
By my life or death, I can protect you. I will. You have my sword. And you have my bow.
And mine axe. Carry the fate of us all, little one. If this is indeed the will of the council, then Gondor will see it done.
Mr. Frodo's not going anywhere without me.
No, indeed, it is hardly possible to separate you, even when he is summoned to a secret council, and you are not.
Wait! We're coming too! Have to send us out tied up in a sack to stop it.
Anyway, you need people of intelligence on this sort of mission, quest. Time.
Well, that rules you out.
Nine companions. So be it. You shall be the Fellowship of the Ring.
Right. Where are we going?
My old sword. Sting. Here, take it. It's so light. Yes. Made by the elves, you know. The blade glows blue when orcs are close. And it's times like that, my lad, when you have to be extra careful. Here's a pretty thing. Mithril. As light as a feather, and as hard as dragon scales. Let me see you put it on. Come on. Oh. I don't dream. Oh, I should very much like to hold it again one last time. I'm sorry I brought this upon you, my boy. I'm sorry that you must carry this burden.
Frodo was given a burden to carry. Not one that would bring him popularity or success in the eyes of the world. Like Frodo, no one ever said that following God's call upon our lives would be easy, would be profitable, would make us a success either in the eyes of our world. For Frodo, as for his companions, the way would be fraught with danger and peril. They had many opportunities to change their path, to turn back, to take an easier path perhaps for themselves. And if you know the movie, you know it would take everything in them and everything within the fellowship itself to help them to stay the course. Likewise, the pull of our world is strong. The pull of success, power, wealth, and even at times the American dream itself has the danger of pulling us off course as people of faith. To be the greatest is to be in service to those who are most in need. What will you clothe yourselves with for the journey? It will not be easy. So how you dress for the journey will make a difference. Take time, as Queen Esther did, for prayer. To clothe yourselves with things that will last. Take time, as Paul suggested, to put on the things of faith, compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, patience. Learn, as Paul suggested, the value of forgiveness. For forgiveness is not about the other person as much as it is about the healing of your own soul. Take time to listen to God's call upon you. Surround yourself as well with those who will help you be strong for the journey. It's fascinating to me that as Frodo stepped forth and agreed to go on the quest ahead of him, others then were empowered as well to join with him. Know that you don't need to go alone. In these times, perhaps more than ever, there is a pull towards sameness, looking and acting like everyone else, accepting that which is handed to you as true. But I ask that you continue to ask the hard questions as you have learned to do at Juniata. Now, I'm not much of a country music fan, but I recently was reading about the controversy around the Dixie Chicks. Many of you perhaps have heard them and know of what they've been through. It was because of a simple statement in which they disagreed with the decisions of the administration of our country and spoke out publicly about that they've been attacked, boycotted, ridiculed, and had many labels put upon them. In my final opportunity to talk with you this morning, I plead with you to stay strong, to resist. Now, for those who might be getting nervous about what I'm saying, I'm not making a political statement about our government here so much as I am reminding all of us to stay the course. Resist the temptation to go with the flow and simply to buy in to whatever may be popular right now. Resist the temptation to dress and look like everyone else because it's convenient or because it seems like the most obvious sort of thing to do. But I invite you this morning to listen to and to remain strong in listening to that call of God upon your life for when it becomes difficult. Listen to your heart, listen to God, and ask the big questions of life. If my 4 short years here at Juniata have taught me anything, I think it is the importance of having our words match our actions, of speaking up for that which is most important to us, of the reality that along with doing that comes the ability to make a difference, whenever we are living out of the center of our being. And so I invite you today, class of 2003, to clothe yourselves in those things that will carry you through the toughest times of the journey. Clothe yourselves with the tools that will give you strength for your journey. Clothe yourselves with the truth as best as you can discover it, and define that for yourself and the communities with which you are a part. It's not always easy to take the next step on the journey, but each step will draw you closer to fully realizing God's call in your life and who you can become. It's not always about potentially sacrificing your life like it was for Esther, for Jesus, for Paul, though it could be. It's not always about making controversial statements in the pursuit of peace and justice, although that very well may be as well. Sometimes, though, it may just be about taking time over your lunch hour to touch and maybe even change the path of a stranger who reaches out for a caring arm. Maybe it's just taking time to sit down and miss a meeting, to be a compassionate presence for someone who is feeling lost. However or wherever the call, the opportunity to serve others comes to you, notice it for what it is. For it is nothing less than the hand of God touching you on the shoulder, calling you into action, naming you. In the name of the living and loving God in whose image all of us are created, I invite you to go forth as people of faith. Go prepared to serve, to be truly dressed for success, clothed with those things which will carry you well in life, whether it takes you to the highest mountaintops or the deepest valleys. Go with God.
Let us pray. thank you for all the friends that we have made over these past 4 years, all the experiences that we have shared, all the memories created. We look back at these memories, these experiences, and these friends, while we look for the bright future to serve you. May the God of the journey go with you now, giving you the joy to celebrate the gift and the mystery of life, giving you the courage to pursue a life of peace, giving you the strength when the way is difficult and windy, giving you compassion for those who have fallen by the road, giving you faith as a constant light for walking past unknown.